Yeah, we most certainly can.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Let's Have a Real Conversation podcast featuring,
Dashing T.
and I am JD, aka He Who Pods. And why we didn't pod last time?
We did.
I know. But they probably thinking.
We did.
Well, I cursed like 10 seconds
We
in.
did.
Chris,
We did.
Chris,
Bleep that out, Chris.
Chris, bleep that F-bomb out. Thanks.
So we did record a pod.
And it was a good pod.
We had a
heated debate.
We had a very heated debate. And we talked about a lot of interesting things. We talked about Drake's new music.
Yeah.
We talked about Diddy and Cassie, which I'm sure people were
Which
waiting
at that
to hear
time
from
was
us.
fresh off the press.
Oh yeah, it was just a couple days later.
Yeah.
We talked about new music. We talked about a bunch of things.
And then what happened?
We finished the recording. Tech happened.
Tech
exactly.
said, "Y'all don't need this recording."
We finished the recording, and half of it was gone.
Yep.
Half of it. No, excuse me. More. Okay, so it was a 2-hour episode as usual, and we only had 30 minutes
of a pod. So we had a quarter. We have a quarter of the pod,
right?
Which was all a debate. Which we could have put out as just a debate clip, but why do that?
Yeah, I just feel like it was incomplete the way that. Yeah. The way it recorded. So, we scrapped it.
We made an executive decision.
We scrapped it. We're going to cover some of those topics today.
And some of them will just fall by the wayside.
Some of them will fall by the wayside. Unfortunately, it'll probably be condensed versions of things that we already said.
And we probably don't have a need to debate anymore.
Exactly. I
think
more
stuff has happened and more stuff has come out.
Things have changed a little bit. I'm kind of part of me is a little glad that I don't mind. I wouldn't have mind for our audience to see our debate, but part of me is glad that we kind of had an opportunity to regroup on the topic, given more information. So,
well, I think that when we had the Cassie and Diddy debate, it was fresh. Like you said, it was a few days after it happened. And I think things were different at that point than today. I don't think we also had the information about the Survivors Act.
Yeah, we didn't.
So we were just going with the information we had.
Right.
And so I think today there are some different conversations to have. Mm-hmm. But I think if the episode came out 2 weeks ago when things were fresh, it would have made sense to debate and the way we were attacking the topics, or that topic specifically. Mm-hmm. But now we're 2 weeks removed.
Yeah.
And so it is what it is. I hate that saying.
But
I feel like people say that when they just don't want to finish the conversation. Mm-hmm. They could be debating. They'd be like, yo, it is what it is, yo. It's fine. It is what it is. It's fine. Let's just move on.
I mean, but also agree to disagree. Isn't it kind of the same? It can be the same thing.
But it is what it is not agreeing. It's like just shutting things down. Mm-hmm. Agreeing to disagree is, you know what? We see things very differently. Mm-hmm. And we can agree that we see things differently. And that's okay.
Yeah.
No love lost. Let's walk away and go back to our neutral corners.
Right. You're right.
It is what it is. It's kind of like whatever. Women used to love whatever. Oof. I don't like those general sayings. Today, everybody uses whatever. But maybe 10 years ago, women would say whatever when they just had nothing left to say in an argument. You'd be like, that's why I caught you cheating. They'd be like, whatever, Derek. Whatever.
My sauce is just okay. I just say okay because okay means a lot of different things. You don't really know what I mean when I say okay.
It's really about the cadence of the okay.
The cadence of the okay, and also, I appreciate the the ambiguity of the okay because
I like gotcha.
Sometimes
I do that same thing with gotcha.
Sometimes you gotta allow the other person to steer the conversation in whatever direction it's gonna go, and so you need that ambiguity there. Like you need to just kind of ball is in your court.
And I'm a little bit of an asshole, maybe a lot of bit of an asshole.
Oh, okay.
But I like when people kind of don't know. You know what I mean? Like you say some shit, and I just be like, Gotcha. And they're like, what does that mean? What just happened right there? I like that.
When we do the Hardly Times sexual intellectual pod, we'll talk about how problematic that is. But we don't have to do that here. That's for another show, another time.
You got it.
Anyway, um, yeah. So I guess we should just get into it since we mentioned Diddy and Cassie.
Might as well.
We might as well just get it out the way. Just again, condensed version. Everybody knows what happened at this point. But if for some reason you don't know,
and you live under a rock,
Cassie sued Diddy for a large sum of money.
It was rumored to be 30 million, but we never got confirmation of that.
Yeah, and then the 30 million thing was always weird because there were also reports that she was offered by him and his team $30 million and rejected the $30 million.
That is correct.
So not really sure. That number has been thrown around, but I think that some of the details of the $30 million is confusing. Suffice it to say, she probably ended up with a lot more than $30 million. Because 24 hours after filing a lawsuit against Diddy, citing
multiple forms of abuse, multiple occasions of various abuse.
Yep, they were together over a 10-year time frame. So she cites abuse throughout the relationship. She also cites coercion, sex trafficking. There's a lot of different allegations within the suit. It was a 35-page document. So and less than 24 hours. People say 24 hours, but it wasn't 24 hours because when it came out, it was evening. It was the night before. It came out that evening. And then by morning when you woke up, by the time LA woke up, the lawsuit had been settled.
Yeah. What's interesting is information came out, and I don't know if you noticed we didn't speak about this, but information came out that actually this had been going on for 6 months prior to it becoming public fodder, public knowledge, whatever you want to say. And so it's interesting that, to me, it's interesting that it took for us to find out as a populace for things to be resolved almost instantaneously.
It's not interesting to me.
Okay, talk about it. Let's have a real conversation.
Let's have a real conversation about powerful men.
Okay. Oof, this is going to be a long pod. Yeah, I hope y'all got your popcorn.
Listen.
I hope y'all ready. You see, I ain't got a lot of coffee left, but I got my coffee.
Men with money, power, and access.
I think I was about to say respect. I was about to bust it out. Eat it live. Eat it right.
You'll sleep at night.
You know what I'm saying? You'll see the light.
No, money, power, and access. Okay? Money, infinite resources. No one technically has infinite resources, but
an abundant amount.
An abundance of resources. Power, being able to control any situation. A lot of times, because of your abundance of money, you're able to control situations. You're able to move the needle in whatever direction you need it to go. People, even if you do things that are wrong, will still let you do those things, will not hold you accountable for those things. And it could be just because they feel like they can't, or because they're just like, well, this person is in a position of power and, I serve at the pleasure. So there's that. And then access, being able to hire any high-powered attorney you want, being able to, speak to the right people, know the right people. He's not just powerful, but he could walk into pretty much any room and people know him, people recognize him, people respect him. So, and there is power in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a notion that there was some sort of investigation that was opened against Diddy, citing harassment as well, and it seemed like it was an ongoing excuse me, I'm trying to get my thoughts together, but it seemed like it was an ongoing investigation by the NYPD. As quickly as that came out, NYPD came out and said we don't know anything about this. Right. Now, the way that it was brought to the public was as if it was a quiet investigation. So I'm not saying that the NYPD is lying, but I'm saying it is quite possible that there's some sort of classified file on this man. Now, but that's kind of what I mean, right? Like the level of access, the level of power, the level of resources that you have dictates how people interact with you and dictates how people handle you when you do certain things. So again, this is all alleged as far as what the lawsuit cited, but I'm never surprised when people kind of back away from a situation or blindly support certain people, which I will say in this scenario, we didn't see a lot of that. We didn't see a lot of people come out and just cape for Diddy.
No, we saw the opposite.
We saw the opposite, which I think is telling, but maybe I'm wrong. I think there's a lot to be said when all your friends and everybody who normally champions you kind of just runs into their corners and don't say anything. Nobody. And let's be clear, a lot of high-powered people will not say anything because they don't want to get their hands dirty. But there are some that will. There are people that will still go out on a limb for you, even though they probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the power and the access. I'm never surprised when things go a certain way because that's kind of how this country works. It's kind of how things work around here. You have the resources and you have the power, and people are like, oh well, that person did a fucked up thing, but it's easier to not hold them accountable than it is to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I mean that's true. What I think is interesting about all of this is once the 6 month thing came out, it really got my wheels turning. Mm-hmm. Because
sorry. I forgot that was how I started talking about that. What I was going to say, just to really answer what I was speaking to, is that there's also a level of arrogance, some would even call it narcissism, that is associated with people who have these things about them, who have the power, who have the money, who have the access. And what happens is some of those people do not humble themselves in situations like this. Mm-hmm. And in turn will have this thought that they are invincible and they can't get into trouble, especially someone who has been doing something for decades and has gotten away with it. We saw this even with Harvey Weinstein, where, because there's also
that's a very different case though.
I'm not saying the case is the same. I was gonna say we saw with Harvey Weinstein, as powerful as he is, he was denying every claim, and not only that, he was intimidating people out of outing him.
Yeah.
So I think there's this idea that because I've gotten away with it for so long, because I have the resources, because people, who are they going to believe? The woman who was trying to get on when I was the head of the label or whatever it is, versus me who was already established and had all the money and all the power and whatnot. That is the way some people think that, oh, there's no way anybody's going to believe her over me. And so that's what I was trying to get to and lost my train of thought somewhere in my flights of fancy.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll respond to that first. I don't know about the whole believing thing. Mm-hmm. It seemed that overwhelmingly people were in support of Cassie in this situation. People from Diddy's past, people that were named in this case,
Mm-hmm.
they seem to be very supportive. The public seemed to be very supportive um, in this situation when it first came out. Um, and so I don't I don't know if this would have been a situation where he was able to just sweep it under the rug
Mm-hmm.
and believed or not believed. I don't know. That would have came with time, I suppose. Um, what I was gonna say is I think it's interesting that this was allowed to go on for so long
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know why you would allow this to come to the public. If you know she's about to write a book, if you know because of this Survivors Act she's able to sue you, um, and if you also know, which you have to know if you're going through this case that, or you're going through these negotiations that the Survivors Act is about to expire,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to know that this is going to become a bigger situation. I would think someone with all the power and all the resources, as you said, that they would nip it in the butt and they would try to suppress this situation, especially because of some of the things that we're seeing happen already.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that he has stepped down as the head of Revolt, and there may be more of that stuff coming because.
Macy's dropped him. Macy's dropped his clothing line.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then there was a he had a partnership with a school.
Mm-hmm.
They also severed ties.
And this is what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that what he did was right. I'm not saying that I believe him or her. I'm only speaking about um, business and branding, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a person as big as he is,
Mm-hmm.
and as far-reaching as he is, or can be, I guess is the best way to say it. I'm shocked that you would allow this to be something that goes on for so long and is allowed to hit the public,
Mm-hmm.
because I would think this is something you want to keep on the hush. You want to keep on the low. One, because the allegations are nasty. The allegations are really, really bad. Like, last pod that didn't come out, we sat here and went through a lot of the allegations, the details. I mean, that those things have become public, but if you look at some of the things being alleged, that's not good stuff.
No.
It's really, really bad stuff. Whether it's true or not, it's less about what happens in court and more about the court of public opinion.
Cool.
And as we are starting to see already, only 2 weeks later,
Mm-hmm.
things are changing rapidly. I would think as a mogul, as a businessman, as a label owner, as a media company owner, as a person who um, your brand feeds all these other brands, because that's the truth. Like Revolt, there are some big things going on at Revolt.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the biggest one is Drink Champs and what's the show?
Carisha, please.
Oh, that's what it's called? I wasn't sure if that's what it's called. I thought it was just a catchphrase. Yeah. Carisha Please and Drink Champs are two really big things that are going on there. There are other things, but even those two things are gigantic today.
Mm-hmm.
And his brand, those things fall under the umbrella of his brand, of the Revolt brand. And so
Mm-hmm.
I would think someone with all of these different things going on would say, all right, let's get this shit settled before it goes anywhere. I would think that's what you would do. So I'm saying all of that to say I'm shocked that him and his team allowed it to go on, one, for 6 months, and two, to the point that it became public. Not surprised that they got it handled quickly because, as you're saying, yeah, of course, at that point it's damage control.
Yeah, of course.
Because now, even if no one chimed in, which a lot of people chimed in, even if no one chimes in, the fact that this is public, people can seek out the document,
Oh, yeah.
people can see the things that are alleged, people can see that she was trying to work on the book or whatever.
You can't unsee what you've seen.
Yeah, and so this paints you in a very different light, regardless whether it's true or not. And it's something that could arguably stay on your record technically. And I don't mean record. I don't mean record legally. I mean, again, the court of public opinion.
It's a stain. No one's gonna forget this.
Yeah, so I hope, as I said last time, that these things are not true. I hope that we don't hear more of this, but it's not looking good that 2 new cases came out shortly after, right before the Survivors Act expired. And then we just saw a slew of cases.
Yeah, and there were thousands over the course of a year. There were thousands of cases, not only against celebrities but also against institutions like prisons and employers and anywhere you could be harassed or sexually assaulted or abused. There were a lot of cases, and again, it wasn't just celebrities, and it wasn't just institutions. There were just regular ass Joes who got sued as well. So this was a huge thing. This was far-reaching. Mayor Eric Adams was accused. Cuba Gooding Jr., Jamie Foxx. There were a lot of people. Jimmy Iovine. Yep. So and we got a list of the people we know, and because we know them. Right. But it didn't mean that it was just those people. Right. But I just wanted to go back to something you said about the fact that you're surprised that if this was going on for so long, they didn't nip it in the bud. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying. The other side to it is that I didn't say is I think that he thought, assuming all of this went the way it was presented to us, right? This is all alleged. We'll never know at this point.
Yeah, we definitely won't.
But I think he thought that she was bluffing. I think that he thought, and that's why I brought up when people have so much at their disposal, and there's a level of arrogance, and some might even argue narcissism. I cringe at the word narcissism because I feel like it's overused.
Extremely overused.
But someone with his profile would probably fit the characteristics of a narcissist, which is, why I'm using that word. But for the purpose of this conversation, we could just call it arrogance.
Sure.
It is possible that he didn't believe that she would do it, or that he believed that he could say whatever he wanted to say to her, or, have his lawyers shut down and squash things that came up, send out a cease and desist on the book that she was going to write. I don't think that he thought that it would implode. I think that he probably thought it would go away. He probably thought that his legal team could make it go away. And here's the key part that I think is relevant to what you were saying. You were saying him and his team. The thing about, I was watching a lawyer speak about this very story, and something that she said that I think that sometimes when we think about these things, we think, oh, this person is huge and they have a team. You can have a team, and your team can advise you to shut the shit down.
That don't mean you gotta listen.
But the final decision is with you.
Absolutely.
And so if he was like, fuck her, like, and I don't know that he said that, but I'm just saying, let's, for argument's sake, let's say he was just like, fuck her, she's not gonna do anything. Like, especially if you think you have that power over somebody, if all of the allegations are true, and he's someone who thinks he has that power over her and has had that power over her, why wouldn't you think that you just say, sit the fuck down, and she wouldn't?
I get it.
So I think that's why it came out. I think that they thought that they could play with her. I think that they thought that they would make her go away, or they would scare her off. And I think when she filed the suit, they were probably shocked which is why everything happened like clockwork. They were probably shocked that she filed that suit, and more so that they couldn't control it once the suit went out. Because suits have been filed. A lawyer that I watch a podcast with a lawyer on it, and she pointed out at the beginning of the year of the Adult Survivors Act, we also saw a lot of cases come up. We just didn't realize what it was at the time.
Yeah, because we didn't know.
We didn't know about it.
And even when they first mentioned a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, the Adult Survivors Act, no one really knew what that was.
Right.
It wasn't something that publicly we knew the inner workings of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody, let me not say anybody, I don't think generally
most people
knew what this was, why does it exist, what are the details, the fact that there is statute of limitations on these types of cases, and that's why this was put in place. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I didn't know any of that, and I try to keep up with these type of things. So I don't think most people knew that, mm-hmm. and I think that is also part of it, right? That people were just seeing all of these things coming up. I was like, oh, what's up? Because remember, 2 weeks ago when we debated, that was part of my debate. That, mm-hmm. like, why are people suing instead of trying to file criminal charges? That was a big piece of our debate because this information wasn't out yet. Right. And so that's part of why this whole conversation changes, right? Because I didn't know it was about statute of limitations. None of that was mentioned at that time. Mm-hmm. And I was standing very strongly on the fact that, like, well, why aren't you trying to lock cats up? And it's like, well, it's too late. In the state of New York, it's too late for that. So now all you can do is try to get some type of financial, I don't want to say reparations, but relief, I guess. Mm-hmm. And
it could also lead to criminal filings, which, yes, the statute of limitations is open, but now if there's an open case, mm-hmm. I heard a lawyer say this, y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know all the legal stuff, but I believe that if, like, let's say one of these cases was to go to trial, I believe that it could lead to criminal charges to be open depending on what comes of it.
Gotcha.
So, that's not a foolproof thing, and it's not, and I don't think anybody going into it is thinking that maybe that's what's going to happen, but they, I guess you do what you can.
Guess so.
And I think the other thing too is, and then we could leave this alone, but I think the other thing too is people are always like, oh, well, one pops up and then all of these other ones come out of the woodwork. And I think people forget that how difficult it is to admit that something has happened to you or someone has done something to you.
Absolutely.
And sometimes seeing someone else say that something has happened to them, and I, it's always weird to me that people don't get this, because this happens in our own, like, regular lives with things that are not as heinous.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Gosh, every time I sometimes I walk around and I'm looking for my glasses and realize they're on the top of my head. People don't necessarily say that to you, but if you say it to them, you'll have 3 more people who sitting in the room who are like, oh my gosh, that happens to me all the time. It's a silly thing compared to what we're talking about. But
it was called Me Too.
Right, because it does spark something in you. It does make you a little bit more brave than you were, and it makes you feel like, okay, someone else experienced this. It also triggers something in you that might say, hey, other people have to deal with this too. Like, maybe if I say something, it won't continue. Maybe there's a way to stop it. I don't want other people to feel what I felt or feel right now. So I think there's a lot of that that comes into play with this stuff. It's really complicated and it's really uncomfortable to talk about. And it's one of those things that it's like, wish it doesn't happen to people, but unfortunately it does.
Yeah, it's way more common than people realize.
Yeah. So, I hate I hate the fact that every week we turn around, we have to have a conversation about another man who has done something or is
It's
alleged to
alleged.
have done something like this. It's disheartening, especially when you talk about entertainment and pop culture and have to kind of reckon with it um, there. So
Well,
publicly,
we
but
won't have this conversation here, at least not today.
mm,
But part of that is because of the built-in, almost foundational power structure of the entertainment industry.
mhm,
And so a lot of things are based on a hierarchy type of thing
yeah,
where the person at the bottom is sucking up to the person at the top for various reasons. And knowing that, the person at the top often takes advantage and turns sucking up to sucking off.
right.
And that is something that is almost built into the foundation of the entertainment industry. A lot of quid pro quo things are part of it. You know, you hear these types of stories very often.
Mhm,
um, and so we won't have this conversation today, and maybe not at all, but
mhm,
that's unfortunately a big part of that
yeah.
industry, whether we're talking music or film or whatever in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And so that is how a lot of this works.
And a lot of the OGs, if you will, also look at it. The ones that don't feel like, oh, like put them under the jail. There are some that are like, oh, that's just the way it is. There's a lot of that's just the way it is when it comes to the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
That's why when the Lizzo stuff came up, not the same, but that's why when the Lizzo stuff came up, some of the things that were being said, people were like, what are they upset about? Um, because there is a certain culture in the entertainment industry. Listen,
Absolutely.
I worked on the corporate side of the entertainment industry, and it was still it was still a shit show.
Yeah.
There was still a lot of the same stuff happening. A
Well,
lot
that's why I
of
said, yeah.
you know strange work happy hours and strange company events, company sponsored events, and even walking through the office and the type of attention you get if you're wearing a certain dress or like there was there the lack of boundaries. um I can only imagine, like, I can safely say that nothing truly that I would consider truly heinous happened in front of me, but I don't mean it didn't happen,
Right.
and it's just who it's yes, you're right. That's a huge conversation. That's a bigger conversation, and that's but it does exist and
Yeah.
has existed.
Since its inception.
Yeah, exactly. So
That's why I said it's almost foundational,
yeah,
which is fucking sick. But that doesn't mean it's not true.
yeah, it's gross. And I think that's the era we're entering now, where people are like, fuck that. It's slow moving, but I think with this whole Diddy thing, I don't know how slow it's gonna move at this point. And I'm not talking about him specifically. I'm just saying I think this probably sparked something that's to come. I don't
We'll
think
see.
this is the end of this conversation. But yeah, so yeah, that's that.
Well, really wish our last pod came out because we did a thorough breakdown.
Yeah,
But
I'm so tired of Drake. I don't even want to do a thorough breakdown.
it got scrapped. And
Yeah,
so
we could talk about it a little bit.
so we reviewed uh For All the Dogs when it came out.
Yep.
A lot of people did,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of public criticism of that album.
Mm-hmm.
And Drake publicly responded in many ways. And we know what happened with him and Joe Budden and
Mm-hmm.
all the things that came from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say thanks to Joe Budden, we have Scary Hours 3, but not really, because it was not an EP like it normally is. This
Mm-hmm.
is actually the first time that Drake added it to an already released project.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is called For All the Dogs Scary Hours Edition,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just being called a deluxe, which is what it really is.
Yeah.
And so we have 6 new songs
Mm-hmm.
where Drake says a lot of interesting things. Number one, Drake came and actually rapped.
He did
Number
do that.
two, we have another collaboration of with J. Cole and Drake. This time they were going back and forth. Um, and we have lots of the things that people were looking for from Drake, including Drake dissing everybody and their mommy,
Yes.
their mammy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so he dissed all types of people. And that definitely included Parks and Joe Budden.
Yep.
It also included the Clips and Pusha T and
Mhm.
Kanye West. And we said people were.
And the women on the internet.
Oh, and the women on the
He
internet.
really got at the women on the internet.
Well, that's
Some of his biggest supporters, by the way. But
I mean, For All the Dogs was really for all the bitches.
listen, the problem with Drake is that he needs you to like him, okay? Drake does not like being disliked. He just doesn't. Now, I think this was great, and I'm happy we
Okay.
got it.
All
But
right.
Drake
I
does
wasn't
not.
sure he was gonna go.
No. I liked it. I said that on when we first talked about it. I liked what he did. I think show up. Even if you're talking shit about people, show up. Especially if you're talking shit about people, show up.
And since then,
Mm-hmm.
2 things that are interesting happened.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, we got the announcement of a J. Cole and Drake tour.
Which is strangely in the strangest obscure cities. I would like to go, but
You're gonna have to travel. You know what I'm saying?
like the only place I would
I
want to
think-
go is like New Orleans.
I think they're gonna do a second circuit.
I agree. I think they're gonna come back to all the major cities after they do that.
They would be doing themselves a disservice not to, but they could also do whatever the fuck they want. They're huge stars. And the second thing that happened is Drake has released the instrumentals and challenged rappers. And I don't know if you've been seeing it, but I know and follow quite a few rappers. And people are putting out their verses and their takes on Drake's For All the Dog instrumentals.
What is that thing you do with the?
Blink, 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 blink.
I can't do it well, but
Chris, if you can, put the GIF on the screen. You know the one. That's what he did. Now, I want to say 2 things and then I'll let you go. Number one,
I'm gonna just call him lazy. So you don't even need to. It's fine. I'm not gonna say anything other than that. But that's it.
number one,
Mm-hmm.
Drake is putting on a clinic on how to keep a project alive.
Yes. That yes.
Okay?
Yes.
First he gave
Yes.
you the
Good for
album.
him. Go Drake. Props to Drake for good marketing.
First he gave the album. Then he gave the public response.
You could
Then
be
he
a
gave the
Mhm.
public response of the 6 songs. And as soon as people got comfortable with that and was like, all right, yeah, we looking forward to what else? What else came out right after? Boom, tour announcement. About a week later, I think it was less than that. Bam, instrumentals. Go ahead, y'all. Since I suck, let me see what y'all got. What a way to keep this alive. I mean, you
Great
thought
marketing, lazy rapping.
You thought Jada and Will were good at marketing? Here come Drake saying, hey, I could market too, baby.
Smoke and mirrors. Smoke and mirrors, because you could still be, you could be a great marketer and a lazy rapper. That's it. I don't need to elaborate because I already talked about that and how I think he phones it in, and I'm glad that he came back and gave us something to work with.
I'm about to say, I don't think he phoned it in on the 6 new ones.
No, but it took people having another poor reaction to his album. This is now what, the third album where people were like, what happened here? It took another poor reaction for him to come back, and really he only came back because he was mad at y'all, not because he particularly felt like he needed to rap.
This might be an unpopular opinion, but the same way a while back we said we like when people have breakups so we can have the breakup albums, I like when artists get upset. I like when they get because sometimes you need a swift kick in the nuts to make you realize, oh yeah, that's what y'all think of me. All right, let me show y'all.
You are right about that.
Sometimes you need for somebody to call you and be like, yo, what's up, man? You quit podcasting? Why I ain't see no pods? Oh, you see no pods? You right.
Oh, that adds fuel to my fire. Let me take a hiatus for a month and somebody be like, I've been looking for your pod and couldn't find it.
Let somebody call and be like, yo, Jay, what's up, nigga? You quit music?
Yep.
Oh, you just a podcaster now?
Yep.
Oh, I'm just a podcaster. Okay, where's Drake's? Where those Drake instrumentals at?
Paper. Oh, so you about to write to some of Drake's instrumentals?
I'm not against it, but I haven't had a particular track that I wanted to run to. Mm-hmm. What I struggle with as an artist is trends. Mm-hmm. I'm not the kind of person who really jumps on trends musically. Okay. Social media marketing is a little different. If there's like a trending sound and I'm like, oh, that's the sound everybody's using, all right, let me use that. Mm-hmm. Or like recently we had a fun interaction because I put out a clip from my solo pod with a Christmas song in the background because it's Christmas season. And so stuff like that, I don't mind. But when it's like everyone is making this type of song or everyone is using this phrase or everyone is jumping on this trend, mm-hmm. I mean, it doesn't really excite me. But who knows? You know, maybe I'll be home and bored and inspired one day and
maybe
put it out. I mean,
maybe. I just
personally, I would like to do like Method Man if I was gonna do something. Uh-huh. I would prefer if me personally, as a person who dabbles in kind of the old school and new school sound, I would like to take some old ass instrumentals and do something there. To me, that's cool. More interesting than rapping on the For All the Dogs instrumentals. Now, maybe rapping on some like old school Nas shit. Right. You know what I'm saying? Or like a hit record from 97. Like, all right. Yeah. Y'all never heard me on blah, 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 blah. It's not a hit from 97, but...
When you hear certain beats, too, you
know
some
what I'm saying?
Heat is coming. Well, you assume some heat is coming.
And then that's the challenge for me. Like, for me to take the Drake challenge and try to, quote-unquote, outdo Drake, it's not really exciting for me. But now, again, this is a personal feeling. Some people feel different. I feel when you rap on a classic record, on that beat, you have to deliver. Kill it, You can't come to like a classic record and just deliver subpar flow, subpar lyrics. People have a high expectation as soon as they hear that. Yeah. As soon as the beat drops, they're like, oh, but what he about to do? Because this is my shit. If he don't deliver,
that's what I'm saying.
You're not gonna get that coming. Yeah, but you're not gonna have that expectation if like track 3 beat from For All the Dogs comes on.
No, I agree.
And you hear me like JD Nero. That's not. Niggas be like, okay, first of all, stop grunting. Second of all, that's Jay-Z shit. Yeah, I know. First of all, stop grunting. And second of all, why are you on this, nigga? You about to sing? No, I'm not going to sing. I'm not going to be like, I was sitting on the blue couch with D. Girl. Nope. It's not going to happen.
All right.
Not going to bust out in a girl. But that's Drake shit. So for me, it's more interesting to rap on something older, maybe more vintage, as the kids say. Not just For All the Dogs. But again, genius marketing.
Oh, absolutely.
Putting on a clinic. The other thing is, and we said this last time, so for you this is not a new thing, but for the audience it is. Didn't Drake say he was about to take a long hiatus because he had stomach problems?
He did. I don't believe nothing he said.
He said he's taking a year off.
Drake is full of shit. I keep trying to tell y'all that. Y'all don't.
Well, I have been saying that for quite some time too.
I've been trying to tell
And
y'all.
you know, people like our clips of me saying it, but I'm just at this
Right,
point.
but from a Drake fan, Drake is full of shit.
I'm just like this motherfucker said.
It's different coming from a Drake fan. Okay. Drake is full of shit.
Like, what happened?
And maybe he meant it when he said it. You know, sometimes you say something and then you reevaluate it and you're like, man, I shouldn't have told anybody else.
Change your mind one time?
Right, yeah. Right. And you know what? That's his prerogative. It's
my prerogative.
It's his health. It's his responsibility to manage that however he does. If he wants to continue, I'm sure his fans are excited that he's touring. He's still touring and that he's made more music since he said that. So I'm not gonna knock that. I like it when Drake is less lazy. So this was great. I thought, you know, give us more music, good music. Give us the music we've been asking you for. Love that.
And he did.
And yes, going on tour with J. Cole, I think is a great look. Him putting out the instrumentals, albeit to your point, that's not really the album I want to hear people rap over. But
that's not my. I mean,
but fine, right? Because again, it is still sparking some sort of engagement for him, and so let's say he does truly, like, let's say after the tour, because the tour is not that long, it's like 2 months. Let's say after the tour and with this stuff that he's doing now, maybe that's it. Maybe he doesn't do much after that. He's still, you know, he's still creating a conversation. Absolutely. Which is good. And I think Drake would really like to make sure he's unforgettable. I think, pun intended. Pun intended. So you know, it's I'm with it. I don't have a problem with it. I'm not mad at him for that. Speaking of instrumentals, though,
these fucking flutes.
Don't do that.
Go ahead.
We have to talk about.
I'm here to hate.
Andre 3000's flute album.
I'm here to hate.
As well as Lupe Fiasco over the flutes. Because I know Lupe is your guy.
I love Lupe. He's great.
And 3000 is also your guy.
He's also my guy when he's rapping and singing, yes.
And Lupe, okay, let's backtrack. Andre 3000, I think we said it last pod, that, not the one y'all didn't hear, but the one y'all did hear, that Andre 3000 was coming out with a flute album.
Yep. And he did.
And
a whack-ass interview, but go ahead.
That may be true, but this album came out and did better than all of the rap albums that came out this year.
Not all, but many.
I thought it was all of them.
No, but many.
Okay, many.
It's first week sales that everyone was speaking about, but we'll get to it. Go ahead.
So, I mean, get to it.
Oh, all right. I mean, Andre 3000 put out a flute album. He says, you know, he'd been walking around playing his flute and
which we knew,
working on wind instruments, and he even told us he's already put stuff out that we didn't know about under other people's names with their permission. And whatever, man.
But why?
Because he claims that he didn't want people to run to it and judge it harshly and criticize it, and he just didn't know what it would be like once public consumption began.
And the exact opposite happened, which is the irony of that.
Whatever. And so Andre 3000 decided he wants to put out a flute album. Mm-hmm. Let me be clear. I don't have any issue with Andre 3000 putting out a flute album. I think it's honorable that he is still trying to create in whatever way he wants to create. As a person who is creative and does a bunch of different stuff, I applaud that. I encourage that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But there are some things I take issue with. Number one, you walking around talking about being famous sucks. Really?
Yeah.
Being famous really sucks. Nobody talks about how being famous really sucks. Oh yeah? Really? Having the greatest, the number one rap album sold ever in history sucks. Oh yeah.
Well, that's not what he said. He didn't say that sucks. He said being famous sucks. And while that does yield the fame, fame is a very specific thing, and some people don't like it.
Yes, we know he's rapped about it. We know he doesn't like it.
However,
That's not going to stop him from putting out a flute album.
However, what you're not saying, which I think is relevant to what you're trying to say, is that while he may walk about the streets and try to be a regular person, he's also highly recognizable, and he's like out in the streets playing his flute, which you can't be mad at being famous and then go out in the street and play an instrument and think that no one's going to notice. Then why do you hate fame? Especially in the era, and I'm sure this is hard for artists who were around pre-social media, pre-camera phones, because, or rather smartphones, because now they can't do anything without it being captured. And I can respect that the world we're living in now can be incredibly frustrating because of that. Hell, me as a normal person who no one knows could do something publicly and it could end up on the internet and go viral. And
I'm sure there's a video of me sleeping on the train somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I'd be knocked out.
Them teenagers on the train got you.
Absolutely.
And what they should have done was, oh, you're not an Apple guy. I was going to say they should have airdropped it to you so you could see it.
Nah, yeah, you all know with them airdrops.
I don't airdrop.
I heard about them airdrops.
Oh yeah, I've been airdropped on the train before. I had to make sure I turned that off.
Complete folders full of nudes on an airplane.
Yeah.
Come on, y'all. Anyway, back to the topic.
So yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I think that there's a little, like, I don't think that he's that naive.
But he's walking around. He said in the interview,
mm-hmm.
all we started here, and we've never gone backwards. We've only gone up in record sales, in adoration, mm-hmm. etc. And yeah, he heard about Speaker Box / Love Below now being the number one rap album ever sold, and that's super fly. Mm-hmm. And in the same token, being famous sucks. It's a byproduct. You can't have both. Like, what do you think is gonna happen? And then, like, you complaining about a privilege is hard for me to digest. Mm-hmm. And that's my only issue with 3 Stacks. Mm-hmm. My next issue has nothing to do with him. My next issue has to do with people overhyping shit and not comparing apples to apples. Okay. And we've discussed this before. We mm-hmm. discussed it when Beyonce and Drake did the pop albums. We discussed it. The dance albums. Mm-hmm. We discussed it when Kanye did the gospel album. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with people putting out whatever music they want. Mm-hmm. That's your prerogative. That's your choice. That's your creation. Right. As an artist, you should do all the things that inspire you, that you're passionate about. I don't have any problem with any of that. But we have to put things in the proper category then. Mm-hmm. People are posting lists, like you said, comparing first week sales of Andre 3000's Flute album and a ton of rappers' albums underneath. No, nigga, compare them to flute albums. Compare them to wind instrument albums. Compare them to instrumentals. One has fucking nothing to do with the other. Mm-hmm. Telling me that Andre 3000's first week sales are 35,000, but this entire list of rappers' first week sales are lower, equates to a nothing conversation. It has nothing to do with each other. He released an album in a totally different category. Well, then let's talk about those people, because that's the real conversation. I don't know shit about flute albums. I don't even know what category of music that falls under, because I also didn't listen to the shit. But then compare it to that genre, whatever that genre is, whatever that subcategory is. Compare it to that. Show me, oh, usually person A is the number one in this genre. Shout out to Andre 3000 who sold double or triple or quadruple or 10 times the amount. That's the conversation. Not comparing him to rappers when he's not rapping. I hate that people do that shit.
Yeah.
Stop doing that. And I don't really tell people what to do, but yo, as everyone loves to say on the internet, we have to stop doing that.
Yeah.
Compare apples to apples. If yes, it's all music, but we all know there are categories, genres, and subgenres. Flute albums don't have shit to do with hip hop albums. They don't. Now, if Lupe Fiasco gets permission from Andre 3000 to release the raps over those beats as an album, then we can have a conversation about rap, about that hip hop collaborative weird album.
Right.
Because then there is a hip hop component. And so if it comes out and they say, oh man, Andre 3000 X, because they don't say slash anymore, X Lupe Fiasco's album, first week sales was this, then show me that list. Because now you could compare that album to Nas' album and Drake's album and everybody else's album. Because it is the same category. But no, not the fucking flutes.
I agree with you on that. I do. I think that, like we've talked about before, it creates, when it comes to awards and when it comes to even sales, it, or rather charting, I should say, not necessarily sales, but the way music charts, it puts lesser known artists, I don't even know if that's the right way to say that, but it puts other artists at a disadvantage in the categories where they should be considered over these people who are trying to genre bend. So I do agree with that, because I think that became an issue that we talked about back in the closet at some point, about the fact that there were artists who are obviously very, very popular and very talented, but not as revered as, I mean, there's not too many people that are revered the way Beyonce is.
And Beyonce, Drake, and Kanye, and Three Stacks.
Right.
I mean,
but it knocked certain artists out of the running for awards, because Beyonce's Renaissance album was, it was crossing multiple genres.
Kanye's gospel album, it won a Grammy.
Right.
So everybody who was doing gospel before got shitted on, and to me, I'm okay with that part. Honestly, it's fucked up, but it's okay with me because
it was in the right genre.
Apples to apples.
But I'm talking about when it's not. So what I'm saying is, if you make a dance album and now your dance album lands in the dance category and the R&B category, and you're winning in the R&B category,
that's bullshit.
It put other artists in the R&B category at a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
That's what I mean. I don't mean it the other way around. Yes, if you put out a dance album and it ended up in the dance category for awards, then if you want it, you want it. But when we're putting dance albums into,
Beyonce shouldn't have won R&B Grammys for this album. So we said that already.
Right.
To double down, there's no reason for Beyonce to even be nominated for an R&B Grammy for what's clearly not an R&B album at all.
Right. And again, there's people who will argue that and say that it is R&B.
They can kiss my ass. Okay. I'm not going to invite them to the other area men love to invite them to, but they can kiss my ass.
Sure. I'm just saying that, it also becomes a conversation about what do we consider what do we consider a part of what genre, but we could leave that there. My question that I have for you.
Yes, I'm a fan of what Lupe did. Oh, that wasn't the question?
Well, before we get to Lupe, something that hasn't been said is, we did say that the Flute album did very well.
35,000 first week sales.
But neither of us talked about the Flute album itself.
Oh, I said I didn't listen to it. So
Well, I did.
Go ahead.
And I also want to note what people have been saying about it too.
What have people been saying?
So I listened to it and I thought it was really interesting. It's not something I would normally listen to. I don't listen to instrumentals.
It's also not just him playing the flute. There's a band and there's a whole entire composition.
Yeah, it was thoughtfully done. That is clear.
He said in the interview, I'm sorry to cut you off. He said in the interview they were basically jam sessions that were recorded. Mm-hmm. Nothing was pre-written. They kind of got in there and was like, oh, this feels good. Let's do this and record this. Mm-hmm. So I think that actually is really dope, and that should be recognized, acknowledged as well. Because a lot of people don't do that. They are writing their music and composing their music and mm-hmm. then saying, okay, we have this pre-packaged thing that we're going in there to deliver. And so that's not what happened here. And I think that also has to be acknowledged.
Yeah. I'm not someone who listens to music that doesn't have words. So that is
You're listening to Kenny G?
Okay. Besides Kenny G.
It's a joke.
I mean, I love Kenny G. That's why I'm like,
okay. I didn't even know. I was just being silly.
But
Kenny G be putting niggas to sleep.
But I think that's the last time. Like the Kenny G era was probably the last time I was a child, but that was the last time I really listened to
CD 101.9.
CD 101.9.
Smooth jazz.
FM.
That shit just come on.
Right. But we're like, who's listening to?
And after about 3 songs, you be.
Exactly, but that's what people are saying about the Flute album. People are saying that it's very soothing. I've seen people say they do yoga to it. I've seen people say they play it to fall asleep. I've seen people say they play it to focus while they're working.
That was a hard F. I thought he was about to say something else.
All right.
I gotta be honest. The way you was getting that F ready, I was about to say, okay, I didn't know niggas was getting nasty to the flutes.
People are probably fucking to the flutes too. Who knows? But
I didn't listen to it, so I can't judge.
I thought it was great. Like I don't think that I'm a good judge of this because I don't typically listen to
this type of music.
I also think that if it wasn't Andre 3000, it wouldn't have done so well.
Duh. Not duh to you. That's part of my point with the list.
I just think it needs to be said because there's a lot of artists out there that none of y'all were gonna listen to this. None of y'all were going to listen to this. Whether it was good or not, wouldn't have mattered.
If we put out an instrumental album tomorrow, I promise you it's going to have 2 listens.
Right. Nobody's going to listen to it. Just the people we know who like us.
And probably not even them.
They might turn it on.
That's why I said 2 listens. Probably not even them.
So I think it's a really interesting album. I can understand why people are using it as like a calming, soothing sort of thing. Now, that being said, I just wanted to point that out because I feel like in terms of what he created something good.
Okay.
And I think that's important to state. Whatever opinions we have around the way he did it or, what he's doing is one thing, but the actual music was good music, in my opinion. Then there's Lupe.
That I love.
So you've heard some of the tracks?
There's only 1 track.
Oh, I didn't. I thought he was.
I've only seen 1.
I thought he was doing the entire thing.
I think he should do the entire thing. If he has 3 Stacks permission, and from the interview, sounds like 3 Stacks is cool with it. Mm-hmm. If he has Andre 3000's permission, why not? Lupe has done stuff to jazz beats before. If you don't listen to Lupe thoroughly, you won't know that. Mm-hmm. It's not on albums, but Lupe on mixtapes has rapped over jazzy beats, and he has done things that rhythmically flow very well in that pocket. Mm-hmm. And so this is not something that is impossible, Lupe is extremely lyrical, extremely versatile,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it would be really smart for someone like Lupe to do it, Black Thought to do it. Um, I think that we will probably see a lot of samples from this,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I'm for all of those things. Again, to me, the creation of art is always okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless you do some like crazy blasphemous shit, then maybe not. But I don't think there's anything wrong. Okay, watch. I don't think there's anything wrong with creating and
Mm-hmm.
collaborating, um, if you have the proper permissions, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if Three Stack says yes, if he clears the samples, if he's down to
Yeah.
share the title. I mean, in it's not a byline. I don't know how they would do it, but if he wants to put it out as a collaborative effort, to me, that's dope. Whoever does it, if you decide, hey, I'm gonna put some bars or some singing over this, you the king of R&B. And
I
so,
am the king of R&B.
right, and
Really,
so,
I should be singing to the flute music.
and that's what I'm saying. So if you put out if you lay vocals over the flute album, I'm
Mm-hmm.
cool with that. Hopefully it sounds good. That's another topic. But the creation of it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with. I don't have a problem with Lupe rapping over the flute album. Now I think there's other ways Lupe could use his talent, but let's take a pause and take a step back. Lupe never got to rap with Outkast. Lupe probably, based on his style, probably idolizes and adores
Yeah.
everything Outkast and Three Stacks have done musically.
Mm-hmm.
And so if this is how I get to share space with this man, that's probably something that's like a dream come true.
Yeah, I can see
And
that.
so, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Is everyone gonna like it? I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
I mean, I don't think it matters whether people. I think.
Well,
I,
when
when
we put out something,
when I say I don't think it matters, I think that what he's doing is important in terms of, like, we were just talking about Drake and how Drake put out his instrumentals for other people to use them, and this is a bit more structured, but this is not new.
Mhm.
You know, back in the day it was just mixtape shit, but a lot of this happened without anybody having to like talk about it, or
Yes.
telling everyone they were doing it. You just put out your mixtape, and a lot of beats that were
Well,
you
we're
know
kind of seeing a resurgence of that because
uh,
that was frowned upon once streaming took off,
right.
because you couldn't people weren't properly getting paid, and your music was being taken down, and there were copyright issues and all of these different things, sample clearances, yada yada yada.
Hmm.
Today it's a little different because of all
Yeah.
the social media creation
Yeah.
uh, tools and the consumption
Hmm.
of these type of social media trends. Like I keep giving Method Man props. Method Man has been on a tear,
Yeah.
spitting over all these classic hip hop instrumentals
Yeah.
and kind of creating like freestyle music video type things. I don't
Hmm.
really even know what to call them, but he's been on a tear. He couldn't have done that a couple years back. It would have been all taken down, and probably because he's Method Man, it's not being taken down.
Right.
But uh, I'm all for it. I don't have a problem with it.
It's good too.
I think it's all good.
Yeah.
Where are we going next? Because we got the big boys out the way.
We
Andre 3000, big. Never mind.
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
I'm not Lupe, but I do things too.
All right. So there was something I was gonna say before, but I can't remember. It doesn't matter. Let's talk about the Soul Train Awards. The Soul Train Awards happened.
They sure did.
Keke Palmer hosted it.
Yeah.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer.
Yeah.
That gets me every time. I think it's a terrible title for a podcast, but that's besides the point.
I don't think so.
No, I don't like it.
But it's not a terrible name. Brand recognition.
Sure.
The cachet that your name has, searchability, internet footprint, all of those things come into play. If this was called the Dashing D and JD Nero podcast, it would be easier for people to find than the Let's Have a Real Conversation podcast. We opted not to do that. Mm-hmm. But the name you've built, the name I've built, putting those things together, that's going to allow people to find it easier. Mm-hmm. That's going to create more tie-ins, mm-hmm. And more interconnecting links, content, searches, etc.
You're right, but I'm not talking about from a branding perspective.
Oh, I know. And that's what I'm saying. I know you don't like the name, but I'm saying but this is all the reasons why it is a good name. Right. Like Gary V's podcast is not, he has one called Sip Tea with Gary V. That comes up as soon as you search Gary V. Mm-hmm. His other stuff doesn't come up as easy, even though he is super popular.
Right. And I get what you're saying.
The Joe Budden podcast, when it was called, I'll name this podcast later.
Mm-hmm. That was a cool name. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not talking about marketing at all. I'm just talking about, of all the names, This is Keke Palmer is not a good name for a podcast. That's all I'm saying. I work in advertising. Of course, I understand searchability and marketing and all. I'm not speaking about from a business perspective. I'm saying from a name perspective, it's not a great name. It's just not a great name. It's not creative at all. It's just a name. It's just, baby, this is Keke. It's and the ads for it are just like, huh? When I first heard the ads, I was like, is that really the name of the podcast?
But the thing is, although it's not creative for a lot of these stars, it is about business and branding.
Of course, it's designed to do what it does. It's designed to work for her. I get that. I totally understand that. I just don't like the name. I just think it could be a better name.
Yeah,
I think I'll name this podcast later is way more interesting than the Joe Budden podcast.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with
I think I'll use myself. I think Hardly Minding My Business,
great name,
way more interesting than Ms. and Mrs. Podcast.
Yes, great name.
So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. The difference is we are the people who are using their name. They're doing so because they know what it brings to the table. But they're also a household name or someone who already has a fan base of a certain, level. Mm-hmm. Somebody like me, somebody like you, we're not a household name. Mm-hmm. So even my example of the JD Nero and Dashing D podcast, it's not going to make this get 1 million views and listens every time. It would probably increase it instead of it just being let's have a real conversation. But those people know they are popular already to some extent. Like, if Cardi B put out a podcast tomorrow, it should probably be called the Cardi B podcast.
Or something with Cardi B. Right. Or, sure.
But that's why all the shows are called like the Oprah Show, the Jennifer Hudson Show, or whatever, Tyra Banks Show, because they could name that shit whatever they want. But
the Cosby Show was about people called the Huxtables.
Exactly.
Had nothing to do with anybody named Cosby.
Exactly. And in all of these podcasts, none of them are up there. Most of them, I shouldn't say none. Most of them are not up there speaking about my childhood, my life, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's some total other shit. But they know, people, JD Nero has 1 million followers. we're gonna call it the JD Nero podcast. Why would
Right.
we call it the Sexual Intellectual Podcast?
Of course.
Who the fuck is the Sexual Intellectual Podcast?
And I remember when, just to use this as an example, I remember when, well, I can't say I remember when, but when I went back into the JBP archives, when they transitioned from one name to the other, I remember him saying that this is just more recognized. This just makes more sense.
Yeah.
Then I'll name this podcast.
And speaking of Joe specifically, he said, like, I didn't really want to do that. I loved the original name.
Mm-hmm.
But for branding purposes and all of the things that we're saying, management and Spotify felt this is the better move.
Well, not only that, and then you're it's all encompassing of your business. Yeah. So it's no longer just the podcast. It's all of these other things. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I totally understand where you're coming from. I just think the name is just not that great. But
it's not creative. Totally, yeah. I agree.
So
what were we about to talk about?
I was just about to ask you the same question. I don't.
Soul Train Awards.
Soul Train Awards. Okay, so she hosted the Soul Train Awards.
I was like, how the fuck Kiki Popper even came up? Soul Train.
She hosted the Soul Train Awards. Soul Train was cool. You know, Soul Train is always cool because it focuses on R&B.
R&Bizzle.
So there were a lot of performances.
Which I thought was good.
Yeah. The performances were great. They did the Soul Cypher.
When you're watching an award show, first of all, I don't like watching award shows. Mm-hmm. When you're watching an award show and it's like 3 performances in a 3-hour show, it's like, I'm falling asleep.
Yeah. Because
most of us are not interested in every single award being given out over 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the show was produced really well.
Yeah.
I liked the way they structured the show. So you got to really enjoy the performances.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess 2 biggest performances of the night were Janelle Monáe. She won the Spirit of Soul Award, formerly known as the Lady of Soul Award, and they changed it because, Janelle Monáe won the Spirit of Soul Awards. They identify as non-binary. So this is why the title of that award has been changed.
Yes.
But yeah, so she won. Fuck. So they won that.
So good.
And T-Pain won
the Legend Award.
The Legend Award. And performed every song we've ever heard him do.
He did all the smashes.
Which was great.
It was a great
I enjoyed
medley mashup performance.
It was nice to take a trip down memory lane.
Who knew T-Pain could dance?
T-Pain is a dancer, okay?
I saw that.
He was in the dancery.
He sure was.
Yo, speaking of
the dancery. It's not about Usher right now. Don't do it. It's not about Usher. It's not about Usher right now. It's not about Usher. You could talk about that on the Hardly Minded My Business podcast. If you don't already, please go check out Dashing D's Hardly Minded My Business podcast, where she will tell you all about Usher and Mary J. Blige. Back to the Soul Train Awards. Back to the topic.
T-Pain was in the dancery.
Yes, he was.
And so was Janelle Monáe. She was up on the stage dancing in her little bodysuit.
Yes, she was.
And flowers. I saw that. I said, "Oh, okay, girl. Well, do your thing. Do your thing." Also makes me think of Usher because she recently, completely
Don't
different.
To check out the Hardly Minded My Business
completely
podcast
different
every
experience
week.
From Mary J. Blige.
Created, produced by Dashing.
Be right here. Be right here. Anyway. T-Pain, I thought was great. I thought Janelle Monáe was great. I honestly thought that pretty much every performance was good.
Yeah.
There were a couple artists that I'm not totally familiar with.
Right, same.
But I think everybody did a great job. I thought it was great music.
Yeah, and for me, one of the things that I really appreciated was the quality of the audio. The audio was really good. You were able to hear everyone clearly. Levels were pretty much on point. There was one or two performances where some people were louder than others, and that's fine. But I think they did a really good job.
Yeah. The audio on Money Long was a little strange to me.
Got you. Yeah, that was one of them with the choir.
Yeah.
But even that, I like. The choir sounded great.
They did.
She sounded great. I mean, yeah, I hear you. The levels were a little off, but I thought they did a great job. That's one of the issues I thought were going to happen because it was like kind of this outside thing.
Yeah.
And there's also been a lot of criticism of streaming events that are happening outside and the way that you hear the audio quality of those events.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good. I thought the audio quality was really good. And I appreciate it because, especially when it's an artist you enjoy, you would like to hear them clearly. Yeah. You don't want to see them going in and then you just hear nothing, which we had that issue when we were at Roots Picnic. That was one of our few criticisms of Roots Picnic was like we were super excited when Jasmine Sullivan came out. We couldn't hear her at all. Yeah. Not even a little bit. Yeah. And so I appreciate that that's not the case with this Soul Train Awards. Your girl Coco Jones was all over the awards 3 times.
Was it 3 times?
She performed by herself. She performed with SWV, which was technically the same performance, but that was her set. And then she came out with BJ, the Chicago Kid. I felt like I was gonna fuck up his name, but I guess I got it right.
I really like that song, by the way.
And the album, which we reviewed last pod,
but nobody heard. But his new album, Gravy, is a great album. Smooth. I've been listening to it over and over again. Yeah. And yeah, he does that song with Coco Jones. He has a song with Chloe Bailey called Honey, which is really good. Honestly, the whole album is good.
Yes, definitely a smooth listen.
Yeah, it's great. So I enjoyed watching them perform. Also, I just feel like duets. We don't get a lot of duets these days.
But let me ask you something.
You don't like duets?
I was gonna ask you, what's a duet? Because if a duet is simply a feature,
no,
we get features a lot.
A duet is not simply a feature.
So let's break it down. What is a duet today?
I think it's the same thing it always was. I think we are singing together, like not necessarily dueling, but singing together. Like some of the verses are us singing at the same time, not at the same time, but singing, going back and forth, like a call and response type of thing. And that's why I say we don't get a lot of duets.
I agree, but that's why I wanted to clearly define a duet, because we get a lot of songs of singers together, rappers together, and duets are a singing thing. But I was curious, how you define it.
Duets are a lot less copy and paste, and I'm not saying that all artists are copying and pasting. But I believe,
as an artist, let me tell you, there's a lot of copy and pasting.
And I'm sure there is. And from a sound perspective, most songs these days sound like they've been copied and pasted, right? Like, not necessarily in a bad way, but
they do.
But they do. They don't sound like the two. They don't often sound like the two people were in the same room.
Because they're not. It's clear that they're not.
So that's why I appreciate a duet, because
it's also a sign of the times. Because why travel across the country if I could just do it right in my crib or in my studio or in my home studio for some people?
Yeah, and that's fine. I don't think it ruins the quality of music, but I do like the idea of a duet where and even that you could overlay one.
I think there are times when it's obvious that this was emailed in, as they say, right? Where you sent me a song with an empty slot that was already pretty much done,
and you filled it in,
and I just did my thing and sent it back.
Yeah.
I think there are other times where you could also tell, like, oh, these two people were together. This might have been created together. And even if it wasn't, you can hear the way that they gel together to make this creation. Yeah. Not just all right, I paid you 50,000 for a verse.
Right.
Do it and record it and email it so I can mix it and put it out.
Yeah. But even the fact that I think the fact that they were on stage together, singing together, I think that speaks to it too.
That was nice to see.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times where you'll have songs like that,
but
where
the other person's not
the artist will come out, and I think that's also a good indicator of maybe they didn't even record the song together. So yeah, I thought that was cool. But yeah, a lot of good performances.
Yeah, they were good.
I don't really have anything bad to say about the performances.
No, and I would like to see more award shows with high quality performances.
Agree with that.
I also like that Soul Train, although it focuses on R&B, and we saw stars like Janelle Monáe and T-Pain at the bookends of the show. Everything in the middle was people in the middle.
Yeah.
It was not like only legends performed or
Mm-hmm.
only up and coming people performed. They did a good job of highlighting legends and newcomers, even in the like medley cipher.
The Soul Cipher.
There was a mix of
I was just about to
exactly
ask you what
that.
you thought of the Soul Cipher.
Oh, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And so is Marsha Ambrosia's new song.
Yes, it is. It's a
I
really
like
interesting song.
And they made sure to put Dr. Dre right on the front of the artwork.
I mean, listen.
So I look forward to whenever that comes out, because that single just came out like, I don't know, what's today? Today's the 4th, 3 days ago.
Yeah. Came out on Friday. Anytime Eric Bellinger's...
Today is not the 4th.
Tomorrow's
Today's the 3rd.
Yeah. Anytime...
I was like, wait a minute. Slow moment.
It happens. Anytime Eric Bellinger is a part of the conversation,
I like that he came with the usher of it all.
Oh, because he will.
Because I was like, oh, these first two people aren't going to include any of the usher sounds or flows that this song has.
They were using an usher
beat. They used You Got It Bad. Mm-hmm. So he came right in with the,
Because Eric Bellinger, that's what he does. Like he's
good. That boy's good.
Butter,
that boy's good.
It's just buttery smooth. It's always just.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I just wish I could just bottle him up and take him wherever I need to go and just play him whenever. He's great.
On your phone, there's apps. If you press play.
Stop it. I want the live show.
Got it.
I want the live show.
On YouTube?
No. I want the live show. You know how many times I've seen Usher's Tiny Desk, and not because of Usher, but because of Eric Bellinger.
Wow. Usher would ban you. He'd probably jump off that wall and karate chop you.
You know I love you, Usher. I love Usher. So there's no question. I think everybody knows that I love Usher, but Eric Bellinger, his voice is on another level. It is just, talking about gravy. Eric Bellinger is gravy.
Got it.
The good kind too, like the finger licking gravy. That's, you make a little boat with your mashed potatoes and you pour the gravy.
You all right? You need a
my
glass?
Mouth is watering.
Need a glass of water?
My mouth is watering.
You all right?
Because my mouth is watering all on its own.
Got it.
All on its own.
All right. Moving right along.
Anyway, so Soul Train Awards was great. As far as winners go, Coco Jones won, SZA won. I don't have a list. I usually have a list. I don't have a list today. But yeah,
we didn't watch it for that.
We didn't watch it for that. But all your faves won. So let's switch it up. We've talked a lot about music. Let's talk about the Marvels.
Okay.
Have we talked about the Marvels at all here? So the Marvels is the latest installment to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yep.
We
normally talk about Loki here, but only because of the Jonathan Majors connection,
right?
And the updates like that. We also have discussed the changes that Marvel has made, which they made more changes just the other day. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so that's usually how Marvel comes up.
Yeah.
On this podcast, on this platform, we don't really review the Marvel movies here or any of that.
Right.
It's not really our thing on this platform.
It's not our thing,
but there is a lot to discuss surrounding the latest film.
Right.
So go ahead, take it away.
A lot going on surrounding this movie. I mean, we know we've talked recently about all of the changes that have been happening with Marvel, so there's that.
Right.
There's a lot of eyeballs on Marvel right now
for various reasons.
Exactly, and this one was I felt like this one was particularly special because most of the cast is comprised of women, which I thought was great. It's directed by a Black woman, Nia DaCosta. It's starring 3 women. Two of the leads are women of color. So I was really excited about it. I mean, I've been keeping up with Marvel, so I know the backstory. So I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be interesting. The unfortunate thing that happened is that it became the lowest grossing Marvel film in history.
Ever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is really tough to say. I mean, and of all the films, I'm just sad that it had to be this one. I mean, listen, it may not be the lowest forever, but right now it is. But I guess the question out there is why?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why. I think we have to couple in a couple of things. We have to consider a few things. As we know, the strikes were going on. It was not promoted the way it should have been, which is weird because there were films that were really well promoted during this time, or during that time, I should say.
But you had to get permission for some of them.
Sure. But it wasn't really promoted the way it should have been. So there's that.
Yeah.
Then you have the fact that there is a group of Marvel fans, not comic book fans, but MCU fans, fans of what's been going on the last 10 or 15 years, whatever it is now, who feel there is a big push happening to put women in the front of Marvel since Phase 3 ended. It has been donned the name FemCU by those fans, and some people feel that it's overkill. There's been a lot of push for women to be in the forefront. You have a lot of introductions of new characters rising to the top. It seems to some people, not me, but it seems to some people that Marvel is not allowing us to go through this without making sure there's a woman in front of our face all the time. That's the view. And so some people feel it's been overkill. And now you have a woman-centered film completely. And sure, Nick Fury is in it, and we knew that, but it doesn't really make much of a difference.
He's wrangling cats. So.
Right, which is a whole nother topic. And the last component is the level of interest. You have 3 characters who people don't have a large investment in.
Yeah.
And that's not opinion. That's just what it is, right? You have Captain Marvel, who was introduced at the end of Phase 3. Her film, Captain Marvel, came out right before Endgame. And although it did very well box office wise, it really was because of marketing and positioning. It was positioned as a movie that you had to see to understand and see Avengers Endgame. Because everything happened with Infinity Wars. Everybody was on this high of, oh God, what happens next? Half the people are gone. Thanos won. This is crazy. And so it's positioned as whatever's going to happen in Endgame, you won't understand unless you see Captain Marvel.
Right.
But that didn't mean people gave a fuck about Captain Marvel. They just had to see Captain Marvel. Right. And so we haven't seen Captain Marvel since. Then you have Monica Rambeau, who they introduced in WandaVision. WandaVision has a split as far as people feel, MCU fans. MCU fans either completely love it or completely hate WandaVision. It was a weird ass show. Yeah. And Monica Rambeau was not even one of the main characters of that show. She's a mid to low level character. Haven't seen her since. Right? And so there's not a lot of investment there. And then Miss Marvel, her show was a teeny bopper show. It's a show
Right.
really that kids were excited about,
Yeah.
not many adults. And making it personal, I only went to see the Marvels because my daughter wanted to see it. If not, I'd have been happy skipping it. And so I think when you put those three things together, FemCU overkill, not being promoted properly, and the low investment
Mhm.
level that people have with the characters, that's those could possibly be the reasons why when you put those things together. Because even the villain, it wasn't like they brought Loki back or they brought back one of the big villains from early on, so that way we were invested. Like even Ant-Man and the Wasp, again, they made sure it's no longer Ant-Man, it's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, which is now the second lowest grossing film, which came out earlier this year. Even that film struggled because, yeah, people know Ant-Man, people know the Wasp, but like, whatever. And then Kang was just introduced. It wasn't a big investment in this character yet. And even him being the centered villain, we didn't really know what it was going to be like.
Mhm.
And so even that, speaks to the struggles of the film. I think if they had a villain that we knew, like, oh, the Red Scroll is back, the Red Skull is back, not
Mhm.
Scroll, sorry, the Red Skull is back, or Loki is back, or I don't know, I'm freestyling, but some other villain that we knew, it would maybe make audiences want to see it more. Even the villain in the Marvels, nobody knew who that was until we watched the movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Like,
also a woman.
also a woman. And so I think when you pair those things together, it speaks to possibly why the numbers were so low.
Mhm.
According to Bob Iger, Disney's favorite guy, there just weren't enough executives involved in this film, which I think is foul.
I've I've heard some criticism about it being too, I guess, along with it being feminist forward, um, that it's also woke. It feminism gets roped into. First of all, never mind. We don't have to talk about how white people have co-opted woke, but
Yeah.
white conservatives have co-opted the term woke,
Yep.
which and turned it into something that it completely never meant.
Correct.
And so one of the top ones,
Yeah.
you know, name rhymes with Len Shadiro.
Yeah.
He has some thoughts about it too. First of all, you know what confuses me about these people? Why did you go see it?
Or did he see it?
Or why is it even on your radar? Like, why does it even matter to you?
It's a good question.
Because he was also very he had very strong feelings about Barbie, which was like very in your face, against the patriarchy, pushing forward feminism and women and centering women. That was very clear there.
Yes.
And he ripped it to shreds.
I can see why.
And
I can see why someone with his core audience and core beliefs would do so.
right. And listen, everybody is entitled to their opinion, and everybody is free to, do what they want to do, be a bigot if they want to be one, and that's it. But it's like I'm confused because I think people get a little wrapped up in the efforts that are made to try to center people who are not typically centered.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's women, sometimes it's black people, sometimes it's people of color, sometimes whatever, right? Whoever, I should say. But I think sometimes we get a little caught up in that and forget that in order to balance the scales, you kind of have to, right? Like you can't just just throw a woman in there once and then say, okay, we did it. You have to be able to balance the scales. Now, I think, and you talked about comic book purists, and I think this is where I'm in favor. There is a piece of me that is in favor of comic book purists because
Okay.
I'm someone who likes to read a book and then go see the film that is about the book. And When they ruin the integrity of the book, I don't like that, right? When they completely change the book or something like that, I don't like it. I watch The Read a lot, and Kid Fury often talks about, he's a big gamer, and he often talks about how conservatives get really angry, conservative gamers get really angry because people who are not normally centered get centered there. It's same stuff. They have trans people. There's all kind, like whoever, and there's this anger and there's this hatred for us people trying to balance the scales. I think it really sucks that it happened with this film because I saw it, and no, is it my favorite Marvel film? Did it have all the action scenes I've loved? Did it have all my favorite characters in it? No, but I think it had value. I think that yes, there is something to be said about seeing three women come together and fight the bad guy, and men tend to get centered as the superhero a lot more often. So I think it's okay for us to have that type of content. But I also realize that if you are someone who is really into the comics and that's just not the way it went, I can totally understand being frustrated with that. What I can't understand is the people who are like, "Oh, well, fuck women, so why are we doing this?"
Yeah, I think there's a few different ways to look at it. With the MCU, with any of these films, DC, Marvel, no matter the company, you can't be a comic book purist
Oh.
because they have completely changed everything from the comics. Every time they make a movie, even when they say this movie will be based off this comic, it's really not.
Mm-hmm.
They might keep the core parts of it, but they're gonna change a lot of it. They're probably changing 60% of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's hard to be a comic purist in this age. It's honestly better if you're not, because you're going to be driving yourself crazy watching this stuff. Or it's better to be a comic purist and just not watch any of this stuff.
You could end up stumbling upon something that you actually find interesting that wasn't there the first time you read the comics,
What happens when you've read the comic is, especially when they say it's going to be based off the comic or they name the thing the same as the comic, you now have an expectation.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is you show up with the expectation and they don't meet the expectation at all. They change 60-70% of the story,
and that's a lot.
the details. It's like, why'd you even name it this? Like,
Right.
if you make a movie about thing A, then it has to be about thing A. Like, you can't say we're making the story of how Dash started the Hardly Minding My Business podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And they start off by making Dash a white woman with red hair. And then instead of being a single woman, Dash has a husband and 3 kids. You're like, this is not the story of Hardly Minding My
You
Business.
said that to upset me, didn't you?
I said that to make a very specific, to give a very specific, weird, strange, total opposite example, because that's what happens a lot of times.
Yes, that is true.
And so the story might be the same. How you changed the podcast, how you used to do it with someone else, and how you changed the name and where it is now, and all of those changes. And so those core pieces may be right, but you're watching the movie like, this don't even make sense. Like, there was no husband involved. In the movie, they make your husband come up with the name of the podcast. You're a single black woman with no kids. I mean, how could your husband be who gives you the name of the podcast?
Right.
And so that would be frustrating, right? If you
Mhm.
saw that. And so that's what happens when you're a comic book purist. You go and you have these expectations, and they basically shit all over the thing they said they were going to do.
Yeah.
So it's better to not be a purist. As far as trying to balance the scales, I don't have a problem with stuff like that. Like, I thought Barbie was awesome. I thought Barbie being in your face was awesome. I saw it recently and I thought it was great.
Look at you watching Barbie.
Yeah, I watched it recently. It was good. I actually called my daughter and was like, "Why did you not like this? This was awesome." I think she needs to watch it again. But Marvel's was not Barbie.
No.
The Marvels was not pushing feminism, was not talking about patriarchy, was not doing the quote unquote woke stuff that even what the whites have flipped woke to mean it was not that. This was
No.
not a feminist, liberal, conscious film. This is just supposed to be a fun film where three women heroes are centered and life lessons are learned and
Mm-hmm.
friends are made and regrets are fixed and all of those things. And so
And by
that's a baseless claim. To say
right.
those things is whack to me. And that's one of the things I take issue with in this age of content creation. It's very easy to make baseless claims without evidence. And for someone like me, that's challenging to watch or be a part of, because I like, that's debate 101. In debating 101, not literally, but like in learning debate and learning anything surrounding legalities, you're taught to uh, use evidence to support whatever claim you have.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you can't say, "Oh man, Starbucks coffee is messing up my stomach." Okay, and then how often have you had Starbucks coffee in the last 30 days? Oh, I had it once. No, then that's just, it doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
So that's a little hard for me. But I think there are a lot of components to why this film did not do well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's unfortunate that it didn't do well. I think MCU would benefit from creating situations that people are more invested in rather than just throwing out randomness.
Yeah, they need to focus on cultivating certain stories. Not all of them, because some of them have been.
Yeah.
But the ones that haven't, and they're trying to center those characters, it would be helpful to maybe not just see them in like an end credit scene or something like that, but actually see their story get fleshed out and interwoven into the other stories that are happening before theirs.
Yeah, because when you just throw someone out as the star, it's like, how much success can you really have?
Yeah.
We don't even really know these characters like that. So why would we run to go see them and their film?
Now, I think that Marvel, I've said this to you off pod, I think that the people who are involved with Marvel, the people who write these stories, obviously it's based on the comics, so it's not coming from nowhere. But I think the fact that there are actual people in this world who can weave stories together in the way that Marvel has woven these stories together, I think is pretty incredible. Dare I say genius.
I agree.
But I think that at some point they lost their way. And as I said, the stories kind of got a little disjointed. And it's probably all makes sense in the end, right? And
We'll
you
see.
probably know this way better than I do, but because you actually know comics.
Somewhat.
I don't.
My specialty is DC, not Marvel.
Comics for me, like when people say comics, I think like Garfield and Kathy and whatever was in the Daily News. That was, I used to read.
Those are comic strips.
Sure.
But they are comics.
But they're comics.
Yep.
And I used to read the comic strips every single day for many years. So that is the extent to my, I don't know anything. And okay, that's not totally true, because my cousins, when I was younger, my cousins were very much into all of that. So, they were into anything like that. They were into the comic books. They were into playing cards. They were into like trading cards and baseball cards and things like that. They were into all of that stuff, the video games, everything. So I was exposed to it a little bit, but not in any big way. So, but from what I've seen after having binged the entire universe, I've seen that some things kind of got like stuck in the middle, like in between other things. Like, we have a good cadence going for a while, and then there's this random thing that you watch and you're like, what does this have to do with everything else? Because you've told me that these things are connected, and now I'm like, hey, what were those people's names? Not the Marvels.
The Eternals.
The Eternals. The Eternals came, and I was like, okay, what are you guys doing here? I mean, they come up later, but I'm just saying, like it got disjointed at some point. So, I mean, if anybody's listening to us, I just feel like let's get back on track, because I think that this is genius level stuff that we have going on here. I don't think that any and everybody can sit in a room and figure out how to, crochet the whole thing together. I don't think it's not for play.
I think the other thing too, which I just remembered as you were talking, is there's some superhero fatigue going on for movie watchers.
Mm-hmm.
Partially because of the last 4 or 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the big blockbuster films that you may have looked forward to before have been shelved, don't exist,
Mm-hmm.
put on hold.
Yeah.
There's no James Bonds. There's no, I mean, the Fast and Furious movies are still coming out, but a lot of
And
these
should
things
they be?
that's another topic for another time. A lot of the things that we might be excited about, heard about, we're looking forward to, in the last couple of years, they've either been shelved, canceled, or went directly to streaming.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the big movies have been superhero movies, even during lockdowns.
Yeah.
And so I think that also plays a part, because even if you're a fan of superhero movies, there's not a ton of other fly shit coming out.
Yeah.
First, it was COVID. They didn't know if they wanted to, the studios, not the fans
Mm-hmm.
and the moviegoers, but the studios didn't know what they wanted to put out, what they wanted to hold on to, what they wanted to put on streaming. COVID died down, but movie theaters didn't fully recover.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like once things started getting into a good flow again, strikes. And then kind of back to square one, because what can we put out? What can't we put out? What can we promote?
Mm-hmm.
What can't we promote? And so I think also that is part of it, where some people are like, all right, but y'all ain't got no fly non-superhero shit. You ain't got like just a cool detective movie. You ain't got like some cool spy shit. You don't got a suspense thriller for me. Like, where's all the other shit? And I don't feel that way, but that's how some people feel. And so I think superhero fatigue also has to be taken into consideration here.
Yeah. Well, good luck to everyone on their future endeavors.
I should have known that was coming.
There's another movie we got to talk about.
What might that be?
Saltburn.
Yo, Saltburn is wild. That's my review.
Bizarre.
That's my review.
Bizarre.
Saltburn was wild.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so many things. There's so many things. I mean, are we spoiling it? Like, how are we even? I don't even know where to start. Saltburn was like, Saltburn overstimulated me at certain moments. I was just kind of like, what? Is this happening?
And yes, it was.
Is this real?
And yes, it was.
Is what I think happening? Because that was so the thought was, I'm watching this thing on the screen. This is happening, but also parallel to that thought was, is what I think happening right now? Like, the thing that they're not talking about, the thing that we can't see on the screen at this very moment, is that happening? Like, all of that was happening for me while I was watching this film. I don't even. I mean, in the end, I'm glad that I was vindicated. What I thought was happening, but it wild.
So you want to spoil it, or you don't want to spoil it?
I mean, I don't want to spoil the whole thing because I want people to go watch it because it was just so freaking fascinating. But we could talk about a couple things. I don't see why not.
All right.
Spoiler alert. Whatever. Get over it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm rude. It's fine.
I mean, you want to. That's why I asked how you want to approach this.
Because I think that you know my whole spiel about spoilers, but they don't know. I can tell them. You want me to tell them? Listen, I feel like if something's that good, the spoiler doesn't ruin it. You can still be excited. You can still feel the anxiousness. You can still people got. I don't know what was the thing that took people over the edge when it comes to spoilers. No, I don't want to I get it. Like, you want to feel the suspense, you want to feel the thrill of it, but also if it's that good and it was spoiled, you're still gonna enjoy it.
It depends what it is.
I just
Like, you can't go see a murder mystery movie and somebody told you to kill her already.
okay, fine, and that's fine. And I'm not saying everything should be spoiled, and I'm not saying every detail and every moment should be revealed.
But that's what happens.
I get it.
That's what gets people upset because
Right.
today
The internet,
movie will come out on Friday. Well, really now it's Thursday. You go online Friday and someone's got a 30-minute detail for detail movie breakdown.
sure, but don't look at it. And also, motherfuckers be like, "Oh my gosh, don't tell me what happened on The Crown." You mean the thing that actually happened in real life? You don't want us to tell you what happened? All right, stop it. That's a little extreme. That's
Sure.
Princess Diana died, and we all know that she died.
What?
It's just like, oh my gosh, don't tell me what happened. What are you talking about? Don't tell you what happened. We all know what happened.
Maybe they don't.
I think it's really funny when it's like based on a book, kind of like what you said, and it's some sort of murder mystery, and like people know because people read the book, but there's all these people who didn't read the book, so now everybody's freaking out, and they're like, "But you idiots!" This has been conversations online. This wasn't me, but there have been people online who have been like, "But you idiots! This is common knowledge. This
Not
was a
for
book."
people who didn't read it.
Yeah, I just feel like we get a little too crazy about spoilers. I just feel like it's not that deep. It's not.
I see both sides. I think it sucks when you're looking forward to watching something, and before you could even watch the thing, someone is already like ruining the whole fucking movie or show.
Yes.
It's like, fam, I didn't even get a chance. Like, the shit just came out. And so, especially when it's a big movie, like, if it's something nobody ever heard of, or something that's like flying under the radar,
yeah,
it's not as bad. But when it's a big movie, like if we came on here and was like, all right, let me tell you what happened in Hunger Games that just came out, even though it's been out a while now, but it's still like in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's like, give people a chance to go see it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Which is fine, and which I normally do, whether it's here or on Hardly. I try to respect the fact that people feel that way. But sometimes it's just like, this is overkill. Everything is not a spoiler. Everything is actually not a spoiler. And half the shit y'all say people are spoiling are in the trailers anyway. If you saw the trailer, you probably saw that part of the movie.
Good point.
I just, it's fine. I know I know that I'm in the minority when it comes to that, and that's fine.
I know you like spoilers.
I do like spoilers.
I don't know why.
Because it excites me. Like, I can read the end of a book and still go back to the beginning of the book and be completely satisfied with what I've read. Because I get the same anxious, excited feeling. The only thing is, I'm willing to skip to the end to find out who did it. And then, but the journey matters, right? Sure. At least for me, it does. So I am going to go back and finish reading it. I'm not going to be like, I can't watch this, or, I can't read this book anymore. It's just kind of silly to me that now the whole thing is ruined. I mean,
I think it depends on the type of story.
Sure. I agree with that. And I also agree with you that when it comes to the internet, and because we could have came up here and we could have told the entire movie. We're not doing that. But the internet is crazy. Like you said, let's say Hunger Games comes out and on Thursday, and by Friday morning someone tweets like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they killed so and so," which is not. I wasn't taking that from the Hunger Games. I'm just giving a random thought. Oh my gosh, so I still can't believe, I'm still reeling from them killing so and so in the Hunger Game, and they list out the whole Hunger Games 3 songbirds and whatever.
It's not 3, but
Exampling? Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Sorry, some of us watch Hunger Games.
I've seen Hunger Games too. All of them. Including the songbird. Including the sing-songy Hunger Games. And yes. Well, listen. All I'm saying is I don't like those people. I think those people are obnoxious. I am not one of those people. And I don't want those people around me. I don't want you to come and, oh my gosh, all of this. But do come to me and tell me, you got to watch this. It's so good. And especially if it's some sort of sequel or something, oh my gosh, this character that was in the first one, wow, they really going to give it to you this time. Like, I want to hear things like that. Oh, are they going to be badass? Are they going to be killing people? Yeah, they're going to be killing all the people in the thing. Whatever. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Anyway, off topic.
So back to the topic.
Back to the topic.
Saltburn.
Saltburn.
All right, I'm gonna go. So Saltburn was wild. I saw the trailer. I was very nervous because it looks like Infinity Pool, which is the movie I came up here and killed and told y'all was a piece of shit and you should not watch. And man, I hope that was wrong. I was like, please don't be like fucking Infinity Pool. In fact, in the movie, they go on a road trip. And when they went on the road trip, I was like, oh no, they're going to do it. They're going to do the same thing that happened in Infinity Pool. Yeah. In Infinity Pool, they go on a road trip. And during the road trip, they hit someone with a car. And after that, the whole movie goes to shit. And I was like, no, this has been good. Don't go to shit, please. And
don't go to shit, please.
And it didn't. Funny. And it didn't.
Okay, so you thought it was going to be like Infinity Pool. And I thought, when I looked at it, I saw a cross between Gossip Girl, Cruel Intentions. What was the third one? Now I can't remember. Shit. It was Gossip Girl, Cruel Intentions, and something else. And it still was, as far as I'm concerned, in a lot of ways. It was very much that. But I don't know why I can't put my finger on what the third... I said it to you recently, but I can't put my finger on what the third one was. But that's what I looked at it and thought, like, there's going to be, like, young people that are full of themselves and obnoxious, and they're probably doing really heinous shit to themselves and to each other. And there's going to be a lot of drugs and a lot of sex and a lot of, wild things going on and partying and, just people living these extraordinary lives and, the outlandish things that happen to them and the people around them. That's what I imagine
there was some of that.
Would be. Yeah.
And there was some of that. Yeah. I'm going to say this. Infinity Pool was good. I would not have guessed from the trailer that the film would go how it went.
You said Infinity Pool was good? Because I thought you came on here before and said that Infinity Pool was terrible.
No, I'm sorry. Saltburn was good.
I was like, wait, what? You lying Infinity on the pod? You're supposed to lie for the pod, not on the pod.
No. Infinity Pool is garbage. Don't watch Infinity Pool.
Okay. That's what you came up here and told people.
Saltburn was good.
It was good.
Saltburn was not what I thought it was going to be. From the trailer, I could not have guessed many of the things that happened. Even when the movie started, the person is narrating and you could tell it's not the current time. I thought that current time was like them in court testifying. Yeah. That's what I was thinking as the movie was playing. We later learned that is not where they were.
So I didn't think the person was in court. I thought the person was like at a precinct or something.
Okay, I could see that.
Similar, but I thought the person was being interrogated by the police. That's what I thought. Yeah, and the fact that when you get to the end, you realize that is not at all what the person was doing. Oh my gosh!
Although they were testifying, but in a very different manner. And so that was wild. The movie was a lot wilder than I thought, a lot more unpredictable than I thought. It was good. I enjoyed it. I could see it as something I would buy and rewatch. I could see me like watching that here and there.
It was also graphic. And by graphic, I mean...
No, it was graphic in a lot of different ways.
It was graphic in a lot of different ways, but it was very graphic, like, in terms of the way that it was filmed.
I didn't like that the film wasn't full screen. Did you notice that?
I noticed that.
I know it's because it was supposed to be 2005 or whatever, but I didn't like that it wasn't full screen. There's a lot of movies that are supposed to be from the past in the time we're watching them that take up the full screen. I didn't like that this didn't take up the full screen. That was probably my one criticism.
Yeah.
Besides that, I thought the movie was great.
That didn't bother me. But okay, so I had mixed feelings about the way it was filmed. Like, I think it was, in terms of like storytelling, I think it was beautifully done. In the sense that minute details were captured on film, which I think when you can do that, to me, I said this to you off pod, that I feel like it was like reading a book with an author who's really descriptive, down to the lines on a person's shirt, or down to the ombre color of a rose petal, like things like that are just very detailed. But instead, it was visual.
Yes.
There was, that wasn't always pleasant to look at.
Right.
But all of it got captured, whether it was the sweat on somebody's neck or vomit or whatever.
Or
Or blood. We saw it all. We saw it all. They did not shy away from showing us things that we would normally probably not see.
Correct.
And there was a lot of bodily fluids just everywhere. It was just wow.
That's a fact.
And I am squeamish. So I was
loving those parts.
I was like,
oh, this is gross. I like that this is gross.
But my thing is, be gross and then move on. There were a lot of scenes where it was like, look at this vomit.
Keep
the camera on it. Keep the camera.
Yeah.
You want to cut yet? No, don't cut yet. Don't cut yet.
Right.
Keep it going. Cut.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Like when the poop was on the toilet and they showed it to us. No, they flushed the toilet, made sure we saw it was still there. Yeah.
The vomit on the sink was gross. And the fact that we had to watch the vomit on the sink for so long, gross. Okay?
I thought all of that was great.
The sink and the mirror, it was just everywhere. It was just like a projectile situation.
And that's what they wanted you to understand. They wanted you to understand that it was a projectile.
We'll leave the blood for everyone who hasn't seen it.
Yeah.
So, because
it was a bloody movie.
It was a bloody movie.
And I'm not saying that because there were English people in the film either.
Nope.
It was a bloody film.
It was a bloody film.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I did too.
I can see me buying it. I can see me rewatching it plenty of times. It's something that I can just sit at home and just enjoy.
It's the type of movie I want to show people.
Yes.
It's the type of movie where I'm like, go, watch this with me. Watch this with me. You're going to like it. You're going to like it.
Yeah.
You're going to like it. That is that type of movie. I have
to be honest, I haven't seen a movie with such a variety of elements at the same time that was done well together.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times there's movies that have all these crazy elements, but they don't put them together well.
Yeah.
There was a lot of wild shit going on in this film, and it was tied together very well.
Yeah.
So I give it a lot of props.
And they touched on a lot of different themes that we hear about a lot now, like mental health and sexuality and racism and
classism.
Yeah. I say we talk a lot about it now, but really we've never stopped talking about those things.
I think certain things have been highlighted more as of late, but I get what you're saying. Anyway, great movie. I don't really have any complaints. Like I said, my only complaint, and I'm being picky, is that it wasn't full screen.
Yeah.
So.
Obviously that didn't bother me though.
And I tear movies apart. So for that to be my one criticism, that tells y'all it was a good movie.
A great movie. It's so fascinating in so many different ways.
Yeah. I got to learn more about the director and see what else they have done and see what else they have coming.
Yeah.
Because
I
would be interested in what else they have in the works.
Their style, definitely. Yeah. I agree. Are we done?
That's up to you, showrunner.
We got one more in us.
That's up to you, showrunner.
Well, this one is probably quick, so we can hit it. The Beatles did a documentary on Disney Plus
And it's
It's a
on multiple streaming platforms now too.
12-minute documentary, I believe.
Mhm.
And it's about how they used AI to bring a song that they were working on back in the day back to life, even though some of their members have passed.
Yep.
Which is, it was kind of cool to watch them do it and see it come to life.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that the families were okay with it, because I feel like sometimes people, try to do stuff like this when people pass on and it's not really sanctioned by anybody it should be. So I thought that it was cool that the families were involved with this, um and they actually really did it using
Yeah.
AI. Now this is how you use AI for good, because we've been talking a lot about AI. AI came up a lot during the strike negotiations. So yeah, this seemed like an important topic for us to touch on, because we love music, and AI is very much a part, has been a part of our conversation lately. So
Yeah, it was really interesting to see both the journey that this song has had
mhm.
over years and years and years,
Yeah,
and different trial and error, different groups of people being involved, and that's one piece. The other piece that was interesting was the way that we were able to see them trying to use technology over the years to make this song happen.
yeah.
It wasn't like they tried once, it failed, and then suddenly they left it alone.
Mhm.
They kept trying different things using technology at the three different times
Yeah.
they attacked the record, and it just wasn't able to happen in a way that they thought was great, palatable, etc. until recently, when you see technology has now caught up to a point where we can single out and separate all of the components of a song or recording,
Mhm.
and they were able to extract his voice, clean up his voice, mix his voice, and now they were able to really build a track around this really what was an audio note uh, of an idea
Yeah.
that he had. And so I thought that was really cool that we were able to see that, and the ways that it changed each time that they tried to attack the record, because they discovered the record, or the idea of the record, the bones, as we say,
Mhm.
of a record years and years ago.
Yeah.
And they just kept trying to do different things, and it was like not quite there yet. And so it was like a sigh of relief when they finally saw like technology has allowed us to do this thing. And it was cool because the original problem was his voice and the little bit of instruments in the background.
Mhm.
And they that was the original problem. But more recently, uh, most of the members are not here.
Right.
But they were able to take what they did years and years ago
Mhm.
and mix and master those recordings with this voice that they singled out from AI. And I thought that was all really cool. As a
Yeah.
creator, I was glued to the screen.
Yeah. It
I
was
was
very
like,
cool.
man, this is so interesting.
Mhm.
All of it. Um, so yeah, I enjoyed it. I also enjoyed that it was short and sweet.
Oh,
We didn't
12 minutes was
see
perfect.
we didn't see 2 hours of this happening. I'm sure they could have made it way
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah.
I like that it was short, sweet, and to the point.
Mhm.
You were able to see their frustration in the early days, and all of the things that were able to happen now. And I think it's really interesting. I think this is a great way to take technology and use it in a way to create something really authentic.
It's way better than a hologram.
Way better than hologram, way better than all the fake music we've been hearing with AI.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really cool thing that we were able to see in real time.
Yeah. And I hope we're able to do that. I hope that other groups are able to do that. I mean, imagine what it would have been like if like TLC had this technology
Right.
when Left Eye passed away. I know they continued to make music, but I'm sure there's music that they had that maybe never saw the light of day because they were working on it with her.
Right.
Um, so
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, where's all the old ODB stuff now?
I know.
It would be really cool to see like them use AI technology
But
to.
Wu Tang is for the children.
Wu Tang is for the children. That's right.
It's my favorite Wu Tang member.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
See, so yeah,
him and Ghostface, but like they're different.
they are very different.
Very different.
I didn't know that. I thought Method Man was your favorite Wu-Tang
Okay,
member.
Method Man is the sexiest member of the Wu-Tang Clan.
Got it.
Okay, okay. So Method Man has a special place in my heart.
Well, that's why I knew about
Method Man could get it. Now, ODB rest his soul, and Ghostface. Ghostface is just, I mean, you know, I love vibey rap, so that goes without saying. But you know, shimmy, 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 shimmy,
Yeah. It would be interesting to see. Not it would be. It will be interesting to see if more of this type of music is able to be recreated or remixed or resurrected, so to speak, moving forward, and how that would work.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a lot of people who just have music in the vault, as we say, that was recorded and is still unreleased for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to seeing how that will come to fruition.
Yeah, agree. I dig that. I dig that. And on that note,
that's our episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching, listening, viewing, all of the above. And we'll see y'all real soon.
Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang forever.